is the North American service broadcasting on 17.70, 15.42, 12.05.
Are you a worshiper of the devil?
What have you done to its eyes?
The next time you're frightened in the dark, don't scream.
They are not what they claim to be.
You're listening to Radio.
Hello.
Hi.
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 Oh my gosh. Welcome back to Radio Grave.
Welcome back to Radio Grave.
Welcome to my grave.
Welcome to my grave.
Welcome to my grave. Welcome to... Oh, I thought you were going to keep going.
No, hell no. That was enough for me. One measure is enough.
Oh, I'm here with Dom.
I'm here with Amber.
Today is a really special day.
My birthday.
Today is your birthday.
No.
No, it's not. It's not my birthday either. But today is going to be our first mini episode. So basically, smaller topics, and we really dig into them.
Yeah, so things that are not necessarily worth, 4 hours of speculation or analysis, but still worth mentioning because they're interesting.
And little bite sizes for you guys too, where you don't have to commit to 4 hours of one topic. It's just a little bit of a quick consumption.
I love consumption.
Yeah, me too.
Something you can listen to on the treadmill, on the elliptical, in the bathtub, in your bed.
On your way to work.
On your way to work. Cleaning of the body, dismembering, bleaching the house.
You're like, oh, I need to listen to this mini. It just dropped.
This mini just dropped. Hang on, lady in my basement. Stop screaming.
Stop screaming.
Put on the soundproof headphones.
Just
Put on the Raycons. Not sponsored.
Not sponsored by the Raycons. And I'm so excited.
You're
because
jazzed.
I'm like so jazzed because I have a really, really crazy topic today.
Right. And it is a topic that I don't really know anything about. I know like the briefest tiny synopsis that you can just literally get from the title.
Right.
Which is
the Mount Shasta robot grandma incident.
And I think that's basically all you need to know. It's kind of like when someone says, "Oh, have you heard of Cocaine Bear?"
Right.
It's a cocaine bear.
It's cocaine
there's
bear,
not really
for
much
sure.
to say.
It's like, what?
So we'll go through it. There's a reason it's a mini.
Right.
And not a full
Right.
in-depth analysis.
Right.
So I'll have you take it away.
For sure. Well, I just want to say that this episode is going to be a weird one. So feel free to keep an open mind or feel free to totally discount it completely.
I will discount everything.
Yeah, because it is kind of out of this world. And you'll see why. This story's just always made my skin crawl. And I think it's just simply because it's totally weird and absurd. And when I ask people if they've ever heard this story, they usually just laugh in my face or they just look at me wide-eyed. But they're always curious about what exactly I'm talking about. So just try and just enjoy it for what it is, which is a story that could have happened.
Here for the ride. Let's go.
I'm here for the ride too. So before we really begin our story, let's talk briefly about the location of where this happened, which is Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta is located in Northern California, less than 60 miles south of the Oregon-California border. Standing tall at just over 14,000 feet, Mount Shasta is the second highest peak in the Cascade Mountain Range and is the center of attention of the aptly named Shasta Trinity National Park. The Shasta Trinity National Park is the largest national park in all of California, and it covers just over 2.2 million acres of land and encompasses 5 different wilderness areas. Shasta Trinity offers a huge variety of recreation activities and is a very popular tourist destination for camping, backpacking, mountain climbing, and tons more.
2.2 million acres can fit a lot of robots.
Yeah.
There could be a lot of robots.
There could be a lot of robots in there. It's very, very popular. There's always a ton of people there. It's, people go there all the time. It's not really out of the way because actually the I-5 goes through Mount Shasta.
Have you been to Mount Shasta?
I have personally not gone camping there or hiking there or anything, but I've driven through Mount Shasta a ton of times. You know what I mean? So
did you see robots at all? Or?
I did not see any robots, but
what about Transformers?
No Transformers.
You were in a car, right?
No. I was actually on foot.
Holy shit.
Like-
You're just running through the mountains.
Running through the mountains.
Running down the I-5.
Yeah. The Mount Shasta area of the I-5, that little stretch in there is so fucking scary because people drive like 90 miles an hour and it's a little bit curvy. It's a little bit stressful, but I think it's just a really popular area because it's not really out of the way.
Dude, sounds like me. Popular,
Huge.
huge, curvy, fast, sketchy, scary, stressful,
Full of bears and robots.
full of bears and robots.
Yeah. So this is where this happened. It was in this area. Mount Shasta has a lot of lore behind it. People think that the lost city of Lumeria is
The fuck?
inside of Mount Shasta or beneath it. We're not going to get into that because it's so fucking stupid and I'll never talk about it ever again because it's the stupidest thing ever. It's just not interesting. It's not funny. It's not cool. It's nothing. It's nothing burger. So my sources this time, they're pretty simple enough. The story became well known after it was shared by the one and only David Paulides in one of his many Missing 411 books. And if you don't know who David Paulides is, he's basically the originator of the Missing 411 conspiracy theory. And that theory is that there are an unprecedented amount of people who go missing without a trace in national parks under bizarre and somewhat paranormal circumstances. And it is true that a lot of people do go missing in national parks in America, but there are other reasons why a lot of times they are not recovered or why they get forgotten about. We're not really going to get into that, but
Is he the one who did those Missing 411 movies?
yes.
Okay.
Those are his movies, and he's written like a ton of books. And I think that he's a really good personality. I think that he has a good time writing and has a really good time being an investigator. But in my own opinion, I feel like David Paulides' work tends to be somewhat spotty, and he often simplifies some information and details while sensationalizing others. But I still find his work to be interesting and enjoyable, but I take most of it with a grain of salt. But if you do want to watch any of his documentaries, you can find them super easily online. I think they're maybe even on Hulu or Netflix, or you can pay for them. They're like $2.99 on YouTube. And he's written a ton of books. If you're into that kind of stuff, go ahead and check it out. It is not bad content to read. And if you would actually like to read Paulides' Robot Grandma story for yourself, you can find a PDF online at docdroid.net. And you would just search Missing 411 North America and Beyond. And it's in the first chapter under Northern California, and you'll find it under Mount Shasta, John Doe. But before David Paulides published this story in 2013, a user by the name of Miss Cat1 created an account on a website called abovetopsecret.com and shared a story which is pretty much exactly the same as the one from Missing 411. And I think she published it in 2011 or 2012. So this is a year or more before it even appeared publicly in David Paulides' book. So when it comes to abovetopsecret.com, from what I can see, it's pretty similar to Reddit in regards to users creating threads within different topics, and they self-moderate through upvotes, downvotes, and they also have paid moderators who comb the website daily. And while I was researching this topic, I was on there for several hours, multiple times, looking through this website. And I can say that there is a healthy amount of dangerous conspiratorial banter present. But I think this is simply because they, as a group, it's a very concentrated niche website that is only really surrounding a certain amount of paranormal conspiratorial subjects. Even in their About Us page, they say that they debate on a wide range of alternative topics. And then they list a couple that's like conspiracies, UFOs, paranormal, secret societies, political scandals, terrorism, just a ton of stuff like that. So you can find this information in this kind of conversation elsewhere. You can find it on Twitter and Reddit, but Above Top Secret, I think, is just a little bit more concentrated in regards to that sort of information.
It's focused on those kind of like fringe topics.
Yeah, it's definitely fringe, and it is on the conspiratorial side, but I found that it's just as toxic as anywhere else. I think it's just easier to find it right away. I don't think that all of the users on there are that fringe or that out of touch. A lot of them seem like pretty normal people because they do have different sub-threads like science and technology and religion, afterlife, paranormal, stuff like that. So why is this important? When it comes to this particular story, information has been very difficult to come by because of its general obscurity. David Paulides only wrote about 2 pages regarding the robot grandma story out of 240. And somehow I was able to find a thread from 2012 that was created by the user mentioned before, which was Miss Cat 1, who seems as if she originally went to abovetopsecret.com in search of advice and support and possibly answers in regards to her own experience. So due to her knowledge of the area and the details that she provided, and her general online activity and presence, as well as her overall interaction with other users, I do have reason to believe that Miss Cat 1 is legitimate and her story is legitimate, and the robot grandma incident is her story. Like, she is the robot grandma.
She's a robot?
She's the originator. She's the robot.
Is that like the Terminator?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
She's going to terminate. But it is simply up to you, the listener, to decide whether or not you believe her story to be genuine or just baloney. And when it comes to us, I simply take it as this is just a really, really good story that could be real, could be genuine, but I don't have all the answers.
I already believe it.
I already believe it.
I don't know what's going on, but I know the title and I think it's true.
I've read a lot of stuff. I've read a lot of stories. I don't try to explain or discount anything. I just say, wow, that's weird.
The Bible?
No, not the Bible.
Oh.
So anyways, all of the names in this story have been redacted except for the one single family member, Kathy, who is Miss Cat 1.
Supposedly. Allegedly.
Allegedly. We are not sure, but I'm pretty sure that it is her.
We're not sure, but I'm sure.
I'm not going to say yes or no, but I personally, in my opinion...
You believe.
I believe. So our story begins sometime in October of 2010 in an undisclosed campground located somewhere near the McCloud River Wilderness area in Shasta Trinity Park. A family of 4, a mother, a father, and 2 children, a boy and a girl, were settling down at their campsite, which was near a creek and a trail, in the early evening for supper after a fun day of outdoor activities. It was around 6 p.m. when 3-year-old John Doe and his older sister of an unspecified age were sitting next to the campfire with their parents very nearby. John's sister claimed she turned away for only a moment, and when she turned back, her brother was gone. John's parents immediately began to look for him, but when a quick search of the creek and the surrounding campsite turned up nothing, the family wasted no time in calling in a report to the park rangers and search and rescue. It is 6 o'clock in October, so virtually very little daylight, to none. Volunteers from the camp, park rangers, and search and rescue sniffer dogs began to comb the area meticulously. And after 5 to 6 hours of searching, the search dogs were able to catch a scent. The dogs led searchers to a bush just off the side of a nearby trail which had been traversed and searched multiple times. And sitting by the bush was John.
So they had already searched all this area for
Yes.
like hours, and then he's just suddenly
Like
there
6 hours.
after they already looked.
Yeah.
In that same spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And literally on the side of a trail. Like just a bush.
Just sitting there.
Like, I don't know if he was fully concealed by the bush, but I know that he wasn't necessarily visible. But it was also nighttime. It was like midnight, 1 a.m.
Yeah.
But suddenly the dogs catch a scent. And it's not very far away. So he was in good condition and was immediately scooped up and returned to his parents, who were relieved beyond belief. And honestly, he's incredibly lucky because most of the time toddlers who wander into the woods are obviously never ever fucking seen again. So he was very, very lucky to have come out of this experience unscathed. But that might not be entirely true.
What did you do to him?
I didn't do anything, but he may have psychological damage.
Psycho boo-boo?
Psycho boo-boo.
If you enjoy our content, please rate, review, and consider becoming a patron by visiting patreon.com/radiograve. You can also support us with a one-time donation by visiting buymeacoffee.com/radiograve. Your patronage and support helps us continue to create content for you. You can stay up to date with us by following our Instagram account, Radio Grave Podcast. Thank you for listening.
So initially, John Doe was very quiet about the whole incident. His parents never pried at him, and it's fair to assume that the family was just happy that he was found and wanted to move on from the whole ordeal. So it was peculiar when just a few weeks later, John suddenly began to speak about what had happened in the woods, unprompted. In pretty much all of my sources, John is described as being highly intelligent and a lot more advanced in speech and thought than most children around his age. 3 weeks after the ordeal, John piped up about his experience while visiting with his beloved grandma, Grandma Kathy, who he called Grandma Cappy.
Grandma Cappy
Which
house.
is kind of cute, right?
Go to Grandma Cappy house.
Grandma-
Tell her about the robot.
Yeah, pretty much. Grandma Cappy is John's only living grandmother, so she found it extremely odd when he suddenly announced to her, "I don't like the other Grandma Cappy."
What other Grandma Cappy?
Yeah, exactly. Confused, she asked him what he meant by that and assured him that she was his only Grandma Cappy. And then John would just say to her, "Do you remember when I was lost in the woods?" "Yes, I remember."
She should have lied.
Be
She
like,
should be like, no, I don't. That didn't happen.
No, I don't know what you're talking about, John. No. And she, yes, I remember. Well, the other Grandma Cappy grabbed me and took me to a creepy place. Not knowing what exactly John was talking about, Kathy asked him who and what exactly was the other Grandma Cappy. And John's response would be very peculiar. He would tell her that the other Grandma Cappy looked exactly like his real Grandma Cappy, but plain as day, he would say she was really a robot.
What?
Yeah.
So, looked exactly like her, but
Was
was
a-
plainly a robot? How would he know?
We'll get into that.
Okay.
He would go on to tell her that the creepy place was a cave where there were lots of spiders, guns, and purses,
Whoa.
and described the guns and purses as being dirty and dusty. So, I mean, those are his words as a child. Guns and purses is pretty simplified speech in regards to, were they backpacks, were they fanny packs, were they actual ladies' purses? He knows what a gun looks like, I'm sure. But were they rifles? Were they, you know what I mean? So pretty simple. The spiders thing, I have no idea. That's fucking weird. So spiders, guns, and purses. On the other side of the cave, there was a ladder which led all the way up the wall to the tall ceiling towards a white light which was illuminating the cave.
So,
He said there was a light in the cave and it was in the ceiling, basically.
weird.
Yeah.
With like a ladder that goes up to it.
Yeah. Kathy would then ask John to describe what exactly this other Grandma Cappy looked like and how he knew she was a robot. And John would explain that the other Grandma Cappy had the same voice and the hairstyle and the same face and even the same feet as his real Grandma Cappy. And when she talked to him, she was very, very nice, like his Grandma Cappy. But when the other Grandma Cappy climbed up the ladder in the cave, the bright light from the ceiling made her look, he said, like a robot. In the light, he could tell she was a robot because she sparkled and looked like she had sparks flying out from her head.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like, maybe she was metal or not like human skinned, I think. So Kathy, like, I think she's just trying to keep her cool. She's like, let's get some clarity. What is a robot? And he would tell her that a robot is made out of metal and has a remote control.
Okay.
And he would also mention that he could see other robots deeper in the cave, but they weren't moving at all.
This is where they keep the robots.
Yeah. And all of the world, iRobot
I wonder.
with Will Smith.
Oh shit! This is Will Smith.
Yeah. iRobot.
John Doe is not exactly
Will Smith.
an original name. Will
Oh.
Smith. No, I know it's Will Smith. I know it's him.
John Doe is Will Smith.
Well, I'm just thinking, does he mention later, like, what the other robots look like? Or is it a bunch of grandmas?
It's not a bunch of grandmas.
It's different people?
He says that there were just other robots in the cave as well. But he doesn't say that they are also Grandma Cappy. The feet thing is weird to me. She must have been wearing sandals or something. And that's a really interesting thing that he recognized. Like, maybe she wore nail polish. toenail polish or something. And or maybe had a little tattoo on her ankle. And that's how he knew, like, oh, this looks like my grandma. Like, exactly like my grandma. So Kathy was genuinely getting a little freaked out, but decided to rationalize it in the best way that she could. Maybe John was just being imaginative and trying to cope with his traumatic experience of being lost in the woods in his own little kid sort of way. Kathy would mention that she was really uncomfortable with the things John was saying about her having a robot double. But also, like, maybe it makes sense. Maybe he was saying those things because maybe Grandma came to save him from the woods. Maybe she's a made-up figment of being the protagonist, the hero.
Could be.
But, you know, that's not necessarily true because she asks him to continue the story, and John's story just gets very concerning from here.
Okay.
She is not the protagonist at all.
No.
John would tell her that the other Grandma Cappy told him that she wanted to look at him and told him that he came from space and from his mother's tummy. That was when the other Grandma Cappy asked him to lay down so she could examine his belly. So he did. He laid down. And after a brief poking and prodding, John would go on to describe a very strange series of events.
Okay. You told me, when we briefly talked about this before, I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to say. And you're like, well, that's the whole story. The kid goes missing and he saw a robot grandma. That's the whole story. And now he's being, like, prodded by a space robot.
Who
this
looks
is
like his
different.
grandma.
This is different than what you said to me.
Right.
You lied to me.
She's like, you're from space. I'm your granny. You're from space. You're That's what a robot sounds like.
You're
Right. So, okay, for this next segment, I don't know if this should be a trigger warning or not, because the following details of the story they're not sexual or violent in any way. They're just not normal. They're abnormal. They're very strange.
Yeah, glancing at your notes, it looks very like, it's like a medical exam.
Yeah, just a little trigger warning for that. So after being examined, the other Grandma Cappy would suddenly present a flat, square object, which John described as a piece of paper. And he told his real grandma that it was not like regular paper, but that it was sticky, quote unquote, sticky paper. The other Grandma Cappy, the robot Grandma Cappy, held the sticky paper down towards the ground and told John that she needed him to poop onto the paper.
Do grandmas not normally do that?
No.
Is that weird?
Yes.
I always did that for my grandma.
I always do that for my grandma.
Rest in peace, grandma.
Rest in peace, Grandma.
Maybe Filipinos are just built different. I don't know.
Oh my God. Honestly, not knowing what else to do, John attempted to poop onto the paper, but wasn't able to. And he told his other Grandma Cappy that he didn't have to go to the bathroom. His real Grandma Kathy heard this, and she was like trying to remain calm when speaking with John because she didn't want to discourage him or scare him from speaking freely. But if I was her, I think I would have been screaming inside because this is just it's just not, I can't. After John said this, he said that the other Grandma Cappy walked him down the mountain, and they eventually ended up at a trail that was by the river. And she led him to a bush and told him to sit down and wait for someone to come find him. And then she would just turn around and walk back into the darkness of the forest and disappear.
Okay.
John, being sure to obey his Grandma Cappy, sat patiently for an undetermined amount of time before he was found by search and rescue.
So, according to him, the story is he's just chilling in the woods with his sister. Then Grandma comes, who's a robot. Mm-hmm. Robot Grandma takes him to a cave where there's other robots. Says, hey.
I think she lures him. He says that she grabs him, but I think that she's like, come with me, and like picks him up and takes him away.
Well, it's kind of weird that the sister turned her head for literally a second.
Yeah.
Because she didn't like walk away. She just turned.
She was just looking at her parents, yeah, or looking around.
I would have to assume someone would have grabbed him if his sister turned her head, turned back, and he was gone.
Right.
Because otherwise, if he was lured, she would have seen him walking away.
Right.
Or heard him running away.
Right. I think that implements reason into this story that is not reasonable. You know what I mean? Like, I think that...
Oh, so we're not operating on thinking this might be a thing that happened.
Because she says they're from space, I'm operating on alien reasoning, which is missing time and time manipulation.
Okay.
So I think that maybe she could have been turning away, and who knows, she could have just said, I was just looking away for a second. She could be a child, 7, 8, 9. All that we know is that she said she only turned away for a second, and when she turned back, he was gone.
Yeah, that could be a total lie too.
Right.
If I was supposed to be watching my brother and I turned away for
Right.
to go chase a butterfly.
Right.
For 5 minutes.
Well, and I would think that if I'm a 3-year-old and I'm sitting there and I'm looking around and then in the dark I see my Grandma Cappy, I would be like, Grandma Cappy, look, it's Grandma.
I would be scared. I don't know Grandma Cappy.
I would be scared too.
I wouldn't be in the woods anyway, though.
She's all
Come with me. Poop on paper.
Poop on paper.
I was like, that sounds awesome, Grandma. Let's go.
Let's go. So I think I'm kind of getting off track here, but we see this often with extraterrestrial encounters and things of that nature where people say that it seemed like no one around them noticed anything. It seemed like things were not normal or that time was not moving. So who knows? Once John was done telling his story, Kathy immediately contacted her son, which is John's father. And Kathy retold John's story to her son, saying that she was very shaken up and disturbed by John's weird and obscure details about the cave, the robots, and most of all, the attempted stool sample. She was very much convinced, there's no way this is coming out of nowhere. And asked him what kind of movies or TV shows they had been watching lately. John's father would tell her that they were not watching any sort of weird sci-fi movies or TV shows, but did admit that John had told him an oddly similar story just a few days before with details of robots and the cave, but not as much in depth about Grandma Cappy being there or the stool sample or the light or the ladder. While John's parents didn't take this story too seriously at first, they were now realizing that something strange may have actually happened to their son in the woods. As to be expected, everyone was freaked out, and it was Kathy who would feel the most disturbed by her grandson's recollection of his disappearance while in the woods. And it makes sense that she was especially bothered that the robot double of herself kidnapped him and antagonized him. But there was something else that was really digging at her. Kathy would tell her own story about an odd incident that she and her friend had had while visiting the Shasta Trinity National Park just months before John's disappearance and recovery. It was in the early summer of 2010 when Kathy and a companion decided to go on a camping trip to Mount Shasta, specifically in the McLeod Wilderness area, which is the same area where John's incident would occur months later. And one night, Kathy decided she wanted to sleep down by the creek, and that creek ran along the edge of their campsite. So she set up her sleeping bag and her tent, and her friend set up his makeshift bed in his camper. It's unclear what exactly occurred that night, but all Kathy knows is that she woke up out of place and with a pain in the back of her neck and head. She would say, I woke up in the morning face down in the dirt, out of my tent and my sleeping bag. I had a puncture wound in the back of my head. I'm a grandma in my 50s. I don't sleep in the dirt. I was violently ill, too sick to even pack and go home. I thought it was a spider bite, and it took me a very long time to feel normal. I had no creativity and no emotions. My friend was sleeping in his camper, and he also had a bite in the back of his neck and was violently ill.
I see where the alien's coming in. I gotcha.
So eventually, Kathy and her friend did make it home, but in retrospect, Kathy began to think about how there were other many things out of the ordinary during their camping trip. Kathy would mention that it seemed as if there was a lack of wildlife present during their visit, and it was expected to see lots of birds and other critters. Of course, it's in the middle of the woods. But this time it was eerily still, like for the entire time they were there. And Kathy would say she can only recall seeing 2 birds, specifically 2 crows, in their campsite. And she would say, they flew in, sat in a tree, and watched us. I thought they were waiting for some Cheetos to fall in the dirt. At the time, we were creeped out by them. I camp a lot. Usually there are butterflies, birds, squirrels. This time, there was nothing. We didn't even see a bee. Even stranger, Kathy would share another detail which occurred the night before waking up in the dirt with the small wound. And she would say, before we went to bed, there were red eyes shining through the trees in our flashlights. We thought maybe it was a herd of deer trying to get to the river, so we didn't think too much about it. But now I wonder.
Do deer's eyes usually shine red?
No.
Why would you think that? If I was in then again, I don't go out in the woods. I don't put myself in these situations.
Right, same.
But why would you see a bunch of red eyes
right
in the darkness?
Yeah.
You're like, it's deer. Good night.
It's deer. Good night. Yeah. And that was like another weird thing where she was like, she's trying to rationalize the situation. You know, she's trying to say, well, there wasn't really a lot of wildlife, but it's not that big of a deal. And we did see eyes in the dark, but maybe it was just deer. And you know, we did see two birds and they were just kind of watching us, like, but they were just waiting for food. But nothing could really explain how she woke up face down in the dirt with a spider bite in the back of her neck, and so did her partner, who was in his camper but not in the dirt. It's just weird. So Miss Cat 1 / Kathy has said on abovetopsecret.com that her son forbade her from ever bringing anything up to her grandson about the Mount Shasta incident. And against his wishes, a year and a half later, John, 4 or 5 years old at the time, Kathy casually brought it up to him in conversation. And John told her the same story as he had before, but instead of saying he was taken to a cave, the other grandma, Cappy, took him to a dungeon.
Okay.
So Kathy claimed that she would be looking forward to asking her grandson again about the experience in the future when he was closer to 8 or 9 years old, which would be in 2015, 2016. In 2014, Kathy posted within the Above Top Secret thread defending herself from criticism. She explained that she does not have a personal agenda, and her family have gained nothing from the experience. She tells of the fact that she no longer goes into the forest and that she is terrified of being out in the wilderness. As before, she was an avid outdoors enthusiast. She also acknowledges the fact that David Paulides' story and her story have discrepancies, but does not attempt to make any sort of explanation. She says, I don't know if in the interview Mr. Paulides forgot the specific details or if he misrepresented the case. I prefer to give the man the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
In another post responding to a supporter and believer in her story, she says, I come back to Above Top Secret because where else can I turn? At least I don't have to face the scoffers face to face. I come back because there are people like you who want to help figure this out. I am very grateful others try to understand and offer prayer, so thank you. At least I don't feel like I am flapping in the wind alone. In a post from 2017 on the same thread, she responds to a commenter asking about updates on John's memory of the encounter. Kathy tells them that her grandson was only 3 years old at the time of the incident, which was in 2010. She declares, he's 8 years old now, so I would like to wait a few more years. I'm not a mathematician, but that would make John 10 years old, not 8. So I found it really strange that there were discrepancies in her response in age of her own grandson.
I mean, maybe she's old.
Right. But it's just, I just was like, what the fuck? Because everything else seemed fine, but just for her to be like, I'm waiting till he's 8 years old. I'm waiting till he's 8 or 9 years old. And it's 2017 and they're like, so do you have any updates? And she's like,
I'm waiting till he's 8 or 9 years old.
He's 10 now. I don't know. I thought that was really interesting. And also just to let you guys know too, this thread that she originally posted on has hundreds of responses, hundreds of comments. I think it's like 25 pages that I just went through and read every single one because she responds to a lot of them. And there's a lot of people who respond to other stuff. And I spent a lot of time looking at this. So it is kind of weird to see this out of place discrepancy of something as simple as she knows how old her grandson is. You know what I mean?
You would think.
You would think. So this is the one thing where I'm like, what are you talking about? Are you really who you say you are? So the two final posts from Miss Cat are both from August of 2020. And coincidentally, her posts are the last ones on the thread. It's been dead ever since. And she says, if anyone is still following this thread, I just thought I would let you know that the Travel Channel will be airing a new Mount Shasta episode, and it includes my grandson's experience tonight. And then another one, she says, We were invited to participate in the filming, and it made a great memory for my grandson instead of just a terrifying experience on Mount Shasta.
Was that episode actually aired? Were you able to find it?
That's the thing, is that I tried to find it. I did find one episode of like Wildest Places on Earth. I tried to find anything that was about Mount Shasta in 2020. There was a show that has a Mount Shasta episode, but it doesn't air until like this year or next year. So it might have been filmed in 2020, but it's not airing anytime soon.
That's weird because she said tonight.
Yes. I tried to find something, and I found some stuff that was about Mount Shasta, but it was all kind of like Lumeria shit, and it was like another story about a guy and his wife who went missing, or you know what I mean? So it's stuff like that. I really couldn't find anything. And I also feel like if there was a Travel Channel story about Mount Shasta that featured the robot grandma story, it would be a lot more well known. So I don't really know why someone who's faking being this person would even bring this up. Oh, there's going to be a Travel Channel thing tonight. I don't know if maybe it's just not available. I could not find dick.
Maybe she's just off her rocker.
Maybe she is. Maybe it's not really her. But it also seems weird that she would go onto Above Top Secret and say, my grandson had a very strange experience. This is the experience that he had. Gives all the details, and then 2 years later it ends up in a David Paulides book. And supposedly how it ended up in the David Paulides book, according to Cappy, Grandma Cappy, is after the incident happened, they were listening to an interview with David Paulides on Whitley Strieber's show, his radio show. And so they were getting into the alien thing. They were delving, they were dipping their toes. So they contacted Whitley Strieber. Can you please connect us with David Paulides? And Whitley Strieber was like, yeah, here's his email. Then the family went to Paulides, and Paulides said, yeah, I'll interview you. Would love to. And then he put it into his book and wrote 2 pages on it.
No, I mean, maybe it's just some family that just wants to, they just want to make up a story. Sometimes people lie just to lie.
Which is very, very true. And it's not unheard of for David Paulides to take a lie and run with it. No offense to David Paulides, but
sounds offensive.
He takes a lot of stuff at face value. People's stories at face value. He also reports on stuff that is very disturbing of people who do go missing under really weird, circumstances, and they are never found, or they are found. There are some things that are hit, and there are some things that are miss. So
this is kind of a miss for me.
This is a miss for you?
Yeah, I don't think.
I think it's peculiar.
I feel like it's true. If it happened even, then the kid saw something, and whether he blocked it out weird,
right?
Some self-defense mechanism, or he actually saw robots, whatever. He saw something. Something happened to him. He disappeared.
It's very hard to say, at least on my end, being the UFO person that I am. It's very hard to be like, well, I don't think this happened at all, because Mount Shasta is incredibly famous for their UFO sightings, for people seeing ginormous UFOs over the entire mountain, tons of reports, or people even seeing UFOs flying into the mountain. So
I guess if I knew that coming into this, I would probably have a different mindset. Yeah.
But also, like, that's just all eyewitness accounts, and that also ties into the Lumeria thing, because it all goes back to that for some weird reason for people. But it's just really strange that she also, the robot grandma, would also say, you're from space, but you're also from your mother's tummy.
Just put in there.
Yeah. Like, he doesn't say anything other than she's, like, going up the ladder, and there's light shining down on her, and it looks like she's shiny, and there are sparks flying out of her head. And he believes that robots are made of metal and controlled by a remote.
Are you theorizing that after the grandma, like, got probed in her neck or whatever, they put, like, a chip to control her or something?
I think that maybe they could have taken... Oh, my God, I sound so stupid. But I think maybe they could have taken some biological information from her to make a double.
Oh, okay.
I think that that's kind of implied, is that there was something weird that happened to her. Something was taken from her. Something was done to her. And then all of a sudden there's a robot being of her. Maybe robot is a simplification, but something that looks like her, that is inside the mountain along with a bunch of other people. And they're all just like in storage in the side of this mountain. It's just kind of a bizarre thing. I don't understand the spider thing, but I was thinking about it more the other day. Insects are very often reported to be seen when people come into contact with ETs. People always say that they look like praying mantises, or they look like bugs, or they look like this, or they look like that. It always comes back to this bug-like sort of thing.
Sure.
And when you have traumatizing experiences like people do when they claim to have been abducted or have contact with ETs, they, in their minds, create a projection of what they're seeing, like owls, or like the face of a deer, or bugs. So it could have been other beings in there, but I've never heard spiders.
It could also be, might sound weird, robot spiders.
Robot spiders. It could all be robots.
Yeah, they could literally all be robots. I don't know.
I don't know either. I know this kind of gets out of control when we really talk about it. It's fun and goofy, but then I'm like,
well, I mean,
it's a praying mantis, it's a robot, and it's an alien, and
it's one of those things where there are enough loose ends that I could be like a speculative equivalent of Freud and just put anything assign anything to anything. Like maybe it's demons.
Right. Maybe it's paranormal.
Maybe it's a cult.
Maybe
it's, you know, it could be anything because there are enough loose ends and it's weird enough and like
fantastical. To me, it's not spiritual whatsoever, but I think that it's completely like outside of our understanding if it is true. But what I come down to is that there are other stories that are similar in regards to
similar elements
of like being lured by a family member who you know, who looks like your family member and you believe it is, but then you know suddenly that they're not. And stuff like, she walked me down the mountain. What does that even mean? Like, you guys went down the entire mountain. He knew that they were far away. And then all of a sudden she just walks him down in like a couple minutes. Thought manipulation, time manipulation. It's all kind of very heavily like UFO, extraterrestrial. A lot of stories that involve children, they have these sort of elements.
You know what children are also susceptible to? Seeing demons.
True.
And ghosts.
True. So when it comes to the robot grandma, I don't fucking know.
Literally.
I don't fucking know anything.
I got no answers for you.
It's a fucking great story. It is so fucking weird.
It's really weird.
It's like,
wonder what they were going to do with that poop.
I don't know. That's another thing. Why'd they want the poop? What is so...
Probably for studies.
What's so... right.
Going off the alien thing, which kind of does sound like the most
they love
reasonable.
To study on us. And abduction tends to be generational. Your grandparents were abducted, their children were abducted, you're abducted, and your children will be abducted as well.
Yeah, because they want to keep
it's all in the family. they want to track the lineage, and that's like the whole
it's a long-term study.
Yeah. Whitley Strieber talks about that in his original book Communion.
Yeah,
is he speaks of that too, where when he started having the hypnotism sessions to remember what happened to him, he also remembers other things from his childhood. Of I think he even told one story of them being on a train, and him and his father being abducted while they were on the train. I may be getting my facts wrong, but basically, like, he is comfortable during this abduction. He does not feel fear, but he sees his father filled with like a fear that he had never seen in a human before, because his father was an abductee, and then he comes to realize that his son is also being abducted. And his son describes them as doctors. Doctors came and took me away.
Yeah.
So it is generational. It does follow through. Children are abducted all the time, and they're often tricked into thinking that who is taking them or who is luring them is a family member. It's a doctor. It's an animal. It's always something that's safer and kinder than a fucking extraterrestrial.
Right.
Once you become an adult, it's like full blown, like, alien in your fucking face.
Yeah. Traumatized
for life. Like, when you're a kid, you're like, it's my grandma.
Yay.
And she's like, bzz, bzz.
I'm grandma.
Shut on this, please. Like,
okay, grandma.
Anyways, that's sort of a tangent, but I don't know. I think that it's not spiritual. I don't think it's demonic or spiritual. I think it's out of this world.
Wow.
I don't think it has anything to do with Lumeria. I think it's aliens.
Now that I'm thinking more and more about it, I don't think it was anything. I don't think anything happened. I think kid wandered off, wandered back.
It was a coping mechanism.
If that.
Yeah.
I think he just said shit.
I'm going to be real. I am like really into this kind of stuff. I had never heard about abovetopsecret.com. So
now everyone has.
Now everyone has, and you can go make an account.
Oh my God.
Go make an account and go check it out. It's definitely a support group for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it's actually kind of easy breezy, beautiful cover girl too. Like they don't have any ads on it because they're like, it's just self-funded by the people who own it. And they like, it's really easy to use and
cool.
It's very straightforward. It's kind of dated, but I kind of like that. It's not, but I'm way into this stuff and I'd never heard of Above Top Secret. So there's a very big possibility that Kathy was deep in the conspiracy, deep in the aliens, deep in that. So she very well could have taken this experience that her grandson had. Maybe he said something weird about it and she manipulated it and connected it and then posted about it. And then David Paulides.
Yeah.
They contacted David Paulides and that's that.
And that's just that.
And that's just that. That's the robot grandma, Mount Shasta grandma robot.
Robot grandma of the mountain.
Of the mountain. I think it's a great story. I know you think it's bullshit. I'm not going to pretend like I know anything. All I know is that this is like one of my favorite stories ever. And a perfect mini episode for us.
Agreed.
Anyways, holy shit. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, send us an email, radiogravepodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Or you can send us a message on Instagram at radiogravepodcast. We like to hear from you.
I like to hear anything that you have to say, even if it's like the dumbest shit ever.
Address it to Amber and say, that's bullshit.
Yeah, say, Amber, you're fucking stupid. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Send a picture of your wiener with it, too.
No.
She loves that.
You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Here's a picture of my wiener. You can suck my balls.
Shut up, bitch.
Shut up, bitch. Yeah. I want to get some of those.
It'd be funny if you get a bunch of DMs from, like, aliens. It's like Alien642. On Instagram. And they're like, didn't happen. Shut up, bitch.
Didn't happen. Proof or it didn't happen. Pics or it didn't happen. You shut up,
Tits
bitch.
or it didn't happen.
Pretty much. So anyways, please don't actually...
Don't send wieners, but do send your thoughts.
Do send your thoughts, but don't harass me for being stupid and believing. I don't necessarily believe in anything. I just am very aware and very knowledgeable about some information about this kind of stuff. So anyways,
okay, Bob Lazar.
I'm not Bob Lazar. I'm just a moron. Anyways, thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for joining us on the
Out of This
Robo
World
ride.
We'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.
Goodbye.
At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere. It is speculated that these objects are of extraterrestrial origin. The broadcast will quiet at this time for your safety. Continue to carry out the following instructions.
Radio Grave is hosted by Amber Byland and Dominique Makasuya. Music courtesy of AOA Music, Carl Casey at White Bat Audio, and intro music by Simon Bickbyler. Audio mixing and editing by Amber Byland. Logo and cover art by Dominique Makasuya. All other media and sound clips used are protected under fair use and are for the purpose of criticism, commentary, news reporting, education, and research. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.